Welcome, everyone. I'm Monica Solace, the live stream host of all-creatures.org. All-creatures.org was founded in 1998 and is a leading resource for faith-based animal rights veganism. Led by our executive director, Tams Nicholson, we provide free resources for people seeking to live compassionately towards all creatures. Our extensive library includes vegan sermons and commentaries, animal rights strategies, action alerts, events, and works by various vegan authors. We also sponsor websites for animal rights organizations. Our mission is to unite compassionate individuals worldwide who honor the dignity of all creatures. So today we're very honored to welcome my good friend Anthony Martinez. Anthony, a proud vegan, is the co-founder of Casa Vegana. Hailing from Brooklyn, New York, he found his calling when volunteering for Casa Vegana in 2019. As fate would have it, the COVID pandemic presented an opportunity for Anthony to establish the organization officially. And he took on the role of director in 2020 with a certification in plant-based nutrition from the Center for Nutritional Studies at Cornell University and training as a vegan coach and lifestyle educator at Victoria Moran's esteemed Main Street Vegan Academy. Anthony brings expertise and passion to his work. Beyond his involvement with Casa Vegana, he finds solace in nature, DJing, and fostering connections with other men on their healing journey. So welcome, Anthony. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, thanks to all the listeners for listening. And hopefully we can touch some hearts today.
We will touch hearts. All right. So let's get on it. All right. So also, everyone that's watching, please put comments and questions in the chat and let us know where you're joining from. And I guess that's it, because we want to address the questions at the end if we have, and we'll have time to. So, all right. So let's start out. What I like to ask my guests is, how did this vegan journey come about? What led you to make the transition to veganism?
Yeah. Okay. How did it start for me? Was health. I got clean in 2007 from drugs and alcohol. And when I started that journey, I started the journey back to regaining my health, right? I was able to hold on to a really good job, had really nice benefits. And so I started taking advantage of those benefits. My health, once I started to go to the doctors, they started to see all these things. I had like high blood pressure. I was diabetic. I was, what did they tell me? I had IBS. They told me, I had migraines. I was like, my cholesterol was high. I was pretty, what I would consider in bad shape for a man at that time. I was 35 at the time. So I started going to doctors and they started prescribing me a bunch of pills. And I just didn't feel right that I was comparing all these pills with my dad, who's about 30, 40 years older than me. So that's where it really started. I started trying to figure out this health thing. And then I had a friend at work who was vegan. And he started telling me to, he's like, stop eating animals. And I was like, I was really resistant, and I was like, what is this guy talking about? But we had a connection because me and him were, we had a 12-step group connection. So I started kind of listening to him, and he told me, he's like, stop eating animals, get into a spiritual practice. And I won't say what he said exactly, but he said, basically be a nice person. And then he gave me this book. He gave me the book, Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. And that was it. I literally read the book in a few days. I stopped eating animals. This was around the 2009 period. And I was basically plant-based, right? Because I really didn't understand the concept of veganism. And that's where I really started. What happened was, after going plant-based, I got lost, right? Usually what I like to tell people in their process is find your why, have a strong why, and the rest will follow. Well, I didn't have a strong why, and I started getting distracted by all the, the bull crap information that's out there with, free range, grass fed, and all these things. So I was like, okay, I think there's a better way to exploit animals, basically what I told myself. And that's what I did. So I slowly went back. And to be honest, I went like really extreme. Like I was going to people's farms. It wasn't sustainable, to be honest. I mean, I was going to other people's farms, picking my eggs, involved in cow shares where, people get together, they purchase the cow before they slaughter it, and then they send you the parts that pertain to you. Really just not sustainable and obviously cruel. And as I was going through that process, my friend kept he kept on me. He's like, I don't think this is going to work. He's like, you know what? He's like, I think it's time you meet the animals that you're eating. And I said, all right, let's go. Let's see what this is about. So I ended up going to Woodstock Sanctuary in New York. That was my first meeting with farm animals. And it was a very, very, very powerful experience. I always talk about this story. It brings me a lot of emotion, a lot of joy. Basically, when I got to the sanctuary, there was a goat, a little mini goat that came up to me, nudged me. He hit me, and then he looked up at me. And that was it. Literally, that was it. I started crying. I just lost it. And I made a promise to that goat that I would never involve myself in any type of animal exploitation. And at the time, that was eating them. And then I went on the tour and I saw the pigs and the cow. I think his name was Andy. It was a black steer. I'll never forget being in the present, seeing this massive. And the only thing that came into my head was I couldn't fathom that we designed machines that would hoist this massive animal up and dismember them in minutes. It hurt so bad. Like my heart was so heavy. And then meeting a cow, a dairy cow, seeing just seeing them, being in touch with them. I just felt so sad. And I couldn't do it. So from that day forward, that was it. I stopped. I figured it out on my own, right? I mean, I couldn't be involved in that type of cruelty anymore. And that was it. Whatever I had to do, I did. I educated myself. Again, I had a very good support network because I had this friend who was already vegan for many years. And he was a man too. That also helped because that was another thing that kind of sat, there's a lot of societal pressures, right? With men, I'm still one of the only few, if not the only vegan man in most of the communities that I visit, that I partake in. So there was that societal pressure as well that kept me going, that kept me in this in this loop of being involved in cruelty because I'm a man. So that was really it for me. It was the sanctuary was really the anchor that gave me the why I shouldn't be doing this. Why shouldn't I participate in these acts of cruelty and violence?
Yeah, and that is so profound because often when we look at animals, we don't see into their soul. And even people, we don't have a soul connection. And that's one of your specialties, not just with animals, but connecting soul to soul with other people on your journey in your life to be able to do that. And how powerful that is.
Yeah, that to me was it was life altering. It's one of the things that I recommend. It's one of the things that I talk to people about the most. We do an event here where I have my digital strategist worked in did sanctuary work, and he has a lot of photos from that sanctuary. And so one of the things that we try to do at our events or anywhere where there's pre-vegans, as participants, is we show them what these animals look like, not on their plate. So it helps build a connection. And we also just recently added a little story, a little blurb talking about giving the animal a name, right? Because, they're not numbers. They have, they're beings, they're sentient beings. And so we try to present that to the community so that they have, while we don't have a sanctuary here yet, I mean, there is one that's forming, but, obviously that takes time, and they're far. They're like on the other side of the island. But that's one thing that I think is a very integral part, for someone that's on the fence, right? They anchored yet, is to take them to a sanctuary, have them meet, have them touch these animals, have them see them, look into their eyes, see how they play, see the joy when they're running. I mean, a goat. I mean, goats and ducks are my favorite. I get so much joy from watching ducks and goats because they're so animated. And ducks, they just, they're waddling and they're moving. I adore those two animals. I adore them all, but those two happen to be my absolute favorites. They bring me a lot of peace and a lot of joy when I see them. And chickens, when I first got to Puerto Rico, I never, we have chickens that roam free here. And it's the most amazing thing to see a mother hen guide her chicks when they cross the street. She stands, she watches, she looks at them, she makes sure that they're all there. That experience to me was also life altering, because that's when I was like, wow, it's true. They do. They are a family, because I still have that programming, that skepticism of, is this, is it true? Is this the right way to be living my life? And it's things like that remind me that, yeah, these are not things. These are beings. They're just like me. This is the thing we have in common. That we have emotions. We want to have families. We want to be loved. We want to feel safe. And those are the bonds that I have when I see another animal. That really fortify my decision.
Yeah. Well, do you have a picture of that little goat, that mini goat?
I do actually. I just found it recently. I can send that over. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you should send that over to me and we can put it in the comments. All right. What about when you went vegan? What did your family and friends think? So you did have one friend, right? Did you feel like isolated?
Yeah.
You know, how,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. So I remember, I know that I became vegan sometime in June. And so the first 4th of July, I went to my friend's place with, tofu pups. At the time, there was no Beyond, there was no Impossible, there was Field Roast. So I went with like the burgers and the tofu pups, and there was that stage of veganism where I was really angry and I was very apostolizing, I think is what Colleen Patrick Goudreau called it. Her podcast at the time, I think it was called Food for Thought. That was to me very influential because I learned, she talks about the stages of veganism. She has about 10 of them. And at that time I was going through the anger, sadness, and then I became like that activist. Like I had to tell everybody, I was just on fire. And that was, I believe it was a mistake at the time because I went into a barbecue where people were eating animals and telling them that they were wrong and that they were involved in cruel acts. And that wasn't the time or the place, which I learned now, in order to have a conversation or an effective conversation with someone, there's a time and a place for that. And while we always want to speak up for animals, that wasn't the time or place. Nobody became vegan after I spoke to them that day. They actually rejected it. And my friend disinvited me from his house. Yeah, for quite some time. I was not, he's like, you can't talk that vegan stuff here, because there were kids. And then the kids started asking me, oh, why is your burger look like this? And I was like, oh, because they kill the clowns and they massacre them. And the kids were mortified.
Yeah.
And, it was, to me, what I've learned now is to be more compassionate, right? In my communication as well. And these kids, I traumatized these kids basically, they were mortified. I mean, they were like, it just wasn't the place. I've had many instances of rejection. My dad, who was a hunter, he didn't reject. He was actually very, very open. Like he was like, okay, so you don't eat meat, no big deal. Just, he didn't really make a big deal of it. My mom, on the other hand, was different. Something I learned right in 12-step recovery is that when you're in recovery, you have to understand that the people around you are also recovering. So you have to be patient and compassionate with them as well. And so what I discovered with my mom, since she was the led in terms of the meals, right? She had to come to the realization that I was moving on, that I was evolving into something different. She wasn't quite ready for that adjustment, and she got offended, as most people do, that heads of the household, when their child comes and says, I'm not doing this anymore. It's and also depends on how you put it, right? I mean, at that time I told my mom, this is wrong, this is cruel, and and my mom used the religious argument, and we didn't get along after that. How did I resolve that? Because there's, to me, it's very important, right? I recommend that if you're the only one in your family, that you continue to go to these events and that you present, vegan food and, have these conversations. But what I don't recommend is that you go in there unprepared, because these conversations can get heated very quick, and in the heat of the moment, things can be said, and then the conversation can never be had again because people put up the wall. Claire Mann talks about this, about that wall. You want to try to connect with people, so that they don't have these, sorry, my screen just went blank. Are you still there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Sorry, my screensaver went on. You have to prepare yourself for these, to have these open, these like compassionate and open communication with the people, especially your family or your friends, because what I've learned for me, right, is, coming from a place of judgment doesn't generally work. I've been there. I've done that kind of stuff, and it's never worked for me. It's never worked. And yeah, if you're the only vegan at the event with great vegan food, that's a great way to bring them in and be like, oh, well, it's not just grass and sprouts and whatever it is, that cardboard, because a lot of people are like, oh, the food tastes like nothing, tastes like cardboard. Well, I'm sorry you've had that experience, but that's not what I'm bringing. That's not what I'm delivering here. And that I've learned that helps. That makes it, but it's also about patience as well, and having some type of preparation. Like I recommend Claire Mann. I recommend, looking at her videos and her content to understand how to have, how to present yourself, or how to have that conversation in a positive way, so that both parties are leaving empowered, right? That's how I learned it.
Yeah, very true. You don't want to get into a battle. Exactly. So, I think we've all been there. So thank you for those wise words. So how does the peace of not eating creatures manifest in your life today?
I mean, on a deeper, spiritual level, I know in my heart everything I can to cause the least amount of harm possible on this planet. I've also found, obviously, my health, got better. That was a big, that was a big thing for me. And, I was able to really understand some words that I really didn't understand before, like what oppression is, and how that presents itself in my life, and how I could be involved in certain acts. So really, veganism like opened me up to other parts of my life that needed evaluation. And it really was to me the stepping stone into all the work that I do now, like, the work that I do in men's circles, the work that I do in conscious dance. I bring this lifestyle, and this philosophy in those circles, and I'm able to be that I want to see. I bring it. Like just recently, I was at an event, with, at a men's circle, and I was able to bring like a vegan dip, and everybody was loving it. And they were like, "Oh, I never thought that vegan, this vegan food could be so good." And so, yeah. But I think for me, the peace, just the inner peace that I'm doing, I'm living in alignment with my values.
Yeah, I love that. And so you mentioned, I think, your mother's religious you were brought up in a religious home. And so where does that stand now? I mean, is it
Well,
still religious, or, or do you not have
yeah,
any?
I keep it spiritual.
Mhm.
I came up with a very dogmatic uh, religious upbringing. So I'm kind of recovering from that as well. Me, it's the God of my understanding. Instead of what my mom used to impose. And my school too. It's also I went to Catholic school my life, so they were very very strict, and other things that I would rather not mention here. But yeah, I look at it as more of a spiritual path.
Yeah, and so if there was someone watching that's newly vegan and going through what we all do when we're like, okay, I'm going to tell my family and they're going to change, and it doesn't happen, and they're sad and depressed. I mean, what are the techniques? And then also, I mean, not just techniques, but what would you say to that person? I mean, to help them. I mean, sleep at night, the ones that are crying and feeling so alone.
Yeah, so yeah, that's deep. There's a lot to unpack there, but I'll give you some. I'll give you what's worked for me, or what I would believe would work for others. First of all, connection. To me, that's the most important thing. So find groups on Meetup, find groups online, start reading. A great book to read to understand what's actually happening to you is Vistopia. Hands down, to me, that was the book that showed me what a vegan goes through. It's a little different. It's a little distinct, what we go through as a community than traditional humans, to keep it that way. So I would recommend that book. I also recommend reading books like Eat Like You Care, Mind It, Don't Mind, or Mind If I Eat the Cheeseburger. I think it's called Mind If I Eat the Cheeseburger. It's by Sherry Cobb. Both great books to learn about the arguments that a non-vegan would make and how to respond. That's important, because if you don't, we want, in order to be a good communicator of the vegan message, right? We have to be, well, for me, I have to be honest. For me, it was like a battle. So I had to prepare myself for that battle. And that was developing tools. Now I don't see it as a battle. It's just a conversation. I'm just trying to bring people to a conclusion that I think once I give them the information, I think they're going to come to that same conclusion. But what I've learned is that they have to come to that conclusion on their own. It generally doesn't work to say, you're horrible, you're involved in some horrendous acts, and you need to change. I found that doesn't work. I found that a real good conversation coming from a place of power generally works better. So yeah, I mean, it's getting yourself ready, right? Learning, read Vistopia, read Eat Like You Care, follow some of the activists like Earthling Ed. I recommend Earthling Ed first and foremost, because he does very good work, and you could see what it looks like to have a very empowered conversation where nobody's coming from judgment, nobody's, it's not arguing, it's not debating, it's just having a conversation and talking about animal rights. And I think he does it. He's one of the best at doing that. But the other part is connecting. Find other vegans in your area. Start, because that's going to be what helps you stay it's going to help you stay grounded in your belief. And I believe that's one of the most important things in order for you to continue to do this work, because it becomes very tough to do this work, to speak out, and be the only vegan in the room, and a practice, a meditation practice, a breath work practice, some type of practice where you can calm your mind and your emotions. I believe is very, very, very crucial to keeping yourself from getting lost in the external noise of the world, of a non-vegan world. So that's what we're seeing all the time. I don't walk this world like traditional people do. I walk this world with a lens of, wow, look at all this cruelty. I walk into a store, I don't see food, I see exploitation. And that's very difficult.
I know what you mean. I was at a Christmas concert and they were playing Sleigh Ride, which is a beautiful song, but I thought, oh, here comes the part where they crack the whip, and I can't stand to hear that. I looked around, I thought, is anybody else looking like, oh gosh, but I mean, no, people are not responding to that because I don't know. But anyway, yes, we're living in a different sort of view of the world. And those are some great tips. I mean, what you said.
One of the biggest challenges, I have to tell you, our culture here is very pig exploitation centered. I did a blog about this actually. The majority of the Christmas music that we hear not only talks about eating sausages and having pig roasts, but it actually glorifies it. I mean, there's songs that talk about chopping the pig up, like literally, that's the title.
Gosh.
I mean, it's last year was a very big eye opener. I actually got into the Christmas spirit since I've been here, and I was like really excited. And there was a station that was playing music all the time and Christmas music all the time, and then I was like, oh my God, what is all this constant glorification? And it's like, and what's really interesting in my analysis of it is like, you have such beautiful voices, such powerful voices talk about, sticking the rod in the animal and then roast. And I was just like, huh. But like in beautiful voices. So I was like, whoa, like there's some serious disconnection going on here. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, that was like a trauma. Like I had to really come to terms with that. Like, okay, this is what it is. And we're doing, we're doing things to help make this better. So I try not to dwell in it, but it's very, very, like that to me was, even today, like, you turn on the radio and every station's playing Christmas music, and 90% of the time it's going to talk about what they do, how they get it to the plate, and how delicious it is. So what I've done to resolve that is I created a playlist. I went through about 200 Christmas songs and listened to them and picked out the ones that don't talk about animal cruelty. And I developed a playlist, which it's about 50 songs, 40 songs, and that's what I present. Like when we do our events that are Christmas oriented, or because we have a very Puerto Rico is the longest festival, Christmas season on the planet. Ours ends around January, at the end of January. It starts really right after Halloween. That's when it really starts. And then it ends at the end of January with a big festival called Festival de San Sebastián. So yeah, when we have two Christmases, we have Christmas and then we have Dia de los Reyes, so the Three Kings Day. So it extends. And so, throughout this whole period, we have a lot of festive music, a lot of things going on. And yeah, so I created that playlist and I share it and I talk about it. And that's a way to help, pave the way for the vegans on the island, for people, for Puerto Ricans, for Latinos in general, that, there is something out there that exists that, with the least amount of cruelty possible or cruelty free. The songs that I have on that list don't talk about any animal exploitation at all. Because there's others, sometimes they talk about the donkeys, sometimes they talk about chicken soup, sausages. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we have some comments. We have, well, let's see, I can't read it. The Lord hath appeared. Jeremiah 31:3. The Lord hath appeared of old unto me, saying, Yea, I have loved thee with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. And here's some hearts for saying 100%. So thanks for watching. And everyone, please subscribe. And let's talk about Casa Vegana. Now, does Casa Vegana have a YouTube channel?
We do. It has. We have to work on that, but yes, it does have a YouTube channel. It's basically a lot of our webinars that we did during the COVID era. So that's they're about 2 or 3 years old. But no, our main focus is our Instagram page, which is casavegana.pr, and our website. But yeah, that's our main focus is Instagram and Facebook.
And you're the co-founder and executive director of Casa Vegana. So tell us about how that started. What was, how did that start? What's the mission of Casa Vegana?
So in a nutshell, well, so how it started, 2007, our original founder, the founder, Michelle Carrera, had an organization in New York called Chili's on Wheels, which still today exists under with the new director and a new co-founder. And during Maria, she was in New York. She's Puerto Rican, and she had wanted to come to the island to help with all the efforts that were going on here. And she did. She came here, and obviously she wanted to continue, helping here, but she also wanted to stay in alignment with her values. So that's where Casa Vegana was born. She started doing food relief and vegan education on the island. And at that time, that was 2007. At that time, it was that was 2017. At that time, let me see, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, at that time, it was a project. So I came to visit to volunteer in 2019, and then realized, wow, this is really where my heart was calling me to be. I wanted to, do service work. I was already sick of my corporate job in the city, and that was it. I kind of made a decision that this is what I want to do. And she had said, if you're going to do service work, it would be helpful if you do it with your people, support your people, empower them on this journey. And that's what I did. I basically moved all my stuff. I left my life behind in New York, and 2019, then 2020, COVID happened. But during COVID was when I established it officially. And then we started the programming, and our basic, the basic mission is to promote veganism here on the island. Promote a plant-based nutrition and advocate for animal rights. And we do that, by educating and empowering our community, right? The vegan community already exists here, and empowering them to be better, communicators of the vegan philosophy.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, what's been your organization's most proudest moment, most meaningful accomplishment?
I mean, there's a few. I would say one would be that we are still here, that we are in Puerto Rico, that we're established here, and that that we're visible, that we've, given Puerto Rico some visibility. What I've learned from going to conferences is that, Puerto Rico didn't have representation in conferences. We don't, we kind of get grouped into the United States, right? Yeah, we are part of the US, kind of. That's a whole nother conversation, but we're a territory, so we don't get the same treatment, to be quite honest. So there is this identity thing that we have our own identity. We're in the Caribbean islands. It's not stateside life. It's two totally different things. And having Casa Vegana here, and doing culturally relevant content has been the way for people to open their eyes, because we live on an island where the United States constantly imposes their will on us, and nobody resistance, right? Like, nobody likes to be told what to do. And so when we present veganism, it's important that we present it in a way that's relevant and that's culturally relevant. It doesn't feel like it's some law or something that's coming from the States, or people from the States telling us how to live our life. And that's been an obstacle, right? That's been an obstacle that, we've had to navigate quite carefully, because, our indigenous cultures were mainly plant-based. All this food that's coming from outside, that stuff wasn't here. When we do the deep work, like, for instance, I've spoken to, indigenous leaders here. These words for cow, pig, sheep, chicken, they didn't exist. So this lifestyle, when we actually really start to think about it, these animals that we're eating here on this island, that was part of the colonization. That was imposed on us. Our ancestors didn't eat this stuff. And that was a big eye-opener for me as well, when we start getting deep into it. They weren't vegan. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that, they were mainly plant-based. So, the other thing we have to talk about is, like, culturally relevant. So what's culturally relevant? So to tell, a Puerto Rican to eat strawberries and blueberries and stuff like that, kale, things of that nature, broccoli, like, those things are very expensive, right? Because we import a lot of our foods here, and that it's costly. But it's also not what is grown here. It's not indigenous to us. So, while kale could be healthy, but, eating potatoes or indigenous tubers are just as healthy. There's a lot, they're very nutrient dense. And if they're grown here, it's even better. So it's a win-win. Not only are we supporting the local economy and the local agriculture, right? But we're also still supporting our roots. We're actually living in alignment with what our ancestors did.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. I really love hearing about the indigenous people. So, and your knowledge of that is impressive. So, tell me about your role as a co-founder. How has that changed, and what do you do? I mean, what's it like to be right in that position? What do you do all day?
I'm sure any founder that hears this is going to say something very similar. Everything. uh, yeah. So being a founder, look, it was all new territory for me. I had never founded anything in my life. So it's like raising a child. It's really, it's your baby, and you watch it grow, and you watch it flourish, and you watch it go through some challenges. Yeah, it's something that I'm currently working on, right? How to be a better founder, how to lead without, uh, without having like founder syndrome or founderitis that they call, like as they call it officially.
What is that?
It's when a founder doesn't allow anyone to participate in their vision. It's like, somebody comes up with an idea and you're just like, you just kind of shut it down, or you micromanage, or you don't allow, you just kind of, just kind of hold on to everything, and because no one else can do it like you, right? There's this thing that you go through that it's very difficult. It's, because you have to start letting go and letting other people do the work. And then you realize, like you start doing some inner work on that. And, you run into people that tell you, just remember, it's not about you, it's about the mission. Even though I've co-founded Casa Vegana and I'm generally the face, but at the end of the day, about the mission. It's not about me. And those are tough pills to swallow.
Yeah.
When you confront that, you're like, oh, wow, yeah,
Right.
It is about the mission. So, these are things that I can honestly, I feel very comfortable generalizing. Most founders go through this. It's a process of letting go. We see it all the time. And so, you learn to stay out of the way sometimes and let the mission speak for itself. And I found that that's generally been helpful in moving Casa Vegana forward.
Yeah, you're separating yourself from the ego. That's a tough thing to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So it takes work. Yeah. And you've done a lot of internal work. So, I mean, that's wonderful that you're able to look at yourself from the outside and see what is happening here. So, yeah. Now, what if someone wants to help Casa Vegana, and what areas do you need help?
Oof. Yeah. Funding is always something that we need, right? As a small organization, we rely on funding to keep going. It's it's a lot of work and we need a staff. We can depend on volunteers. Sure, that's great. Volunteers are great, and we appreciate volunteers. But I'd like to talk about the culture, right? It would be nice, right, to have to provide jobs for people like us, like vegans, right? to be in alignment, right? What better way is to create, a nonprofit structure where we have people that get paid for their work. For instance, like, my digital strategist, someone also the person that handles the administrative part, me being the executive director. I mean, those things, they have a value. And it would, it's great to have, that's another thing that we bring to the table. It's like we can provide jobs for people that want to do this work, but find very few organizations, especially locally, right? Because I mean, you do have other organizations that exist that are, that are vegan, but they're stateside. So I feel like we've brought that here, where we can create a culture, a nonprofit culture for vegans, so they can do work that is aligned with them. So funding. And if you go to our webpage at Casa Vegana, pr.org, you can find a donation page, or you could reach out to us and ask more how to become, a recurring donor, or how to, or if you have someone that would love to support our work. It's always best to connect us with people that are living in abundance, that are looking for a place that is aligned with their values, to help us continue our mission.
Yeah, and your mission is so important. And I just will never forget hearing you talk about living in Puerto Rico. I mean, I mean, there's so much struggles just getting day to day, trying to get through the days there. And how that, like, veganism is so far removed from most people that live there. They can't get there because they're struggling to stay afloat. And is it still like that now?
Yeah, so we face a lot of different crises here. And so, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to speak to someone about veganism. And this is where I talk about, this is, to me, culturally relevant. This goes into this part as well, right? We have to be mindful that we could be talking to someone who might not have the means, sometimes you're speaking to people that don't depend on food that's given to them, either through an agency or an organization. And so they might not have a choice, right? So sometimes these conversations might lead, to other things. Maybe somebody just wants to be heard and need to be acknowledged that they're struggling. So that's sometimes what becomes the conversation, and that's okay. The other part is, you can talk to them how a plant-based meal, right, or plant-based nutrition can help with some of the things that they're going through. But it's generally difficult, psychologically, when someone is in a crisis mode, for them to take the information and digest it. Claire talks about this as well. Psychologically, it's very difficult. So we meet people where they are, and we bring them, slowly and compassionately, into our world, and show them that it can be affordable, it can be efficient. And maybe if all you have is beans and rice, that's okay. It doesn't have to be this elaborate, meal. Sometimes it's just best to keep it simple. It's a very, there's a lot more to unpack, because there's a lot more, that goes on here. We have poverty, there's real poverty going on here. And there's not a lot of resources to help with that. So, and we also face challenges with power and water. Sometimes the power goes out for several days. It's not very stable. People lose food, so we can talk to them about, hey, if you have all plant-based food in your refrigerator, if the power goes out, it won't go bad as quick, right? So that's one hook that we can use to like get them to consider, like, hey, oh, maybe this makes sense. It's just different ways of presenting the information that I found that we have to be mindful here. But for the most part, we have to, be mindful that not everybody has the same resources available. And that's one of the things that we've done here is create resources for Puerto Ricans so it can resonate with them, instead of how, the information where they lump it all up into Latin America, and then we get lumped into that, or gets lumped into just stateside or North American, because it just doesn't become culturally relevant. It doesn't resonate with the people. And it's just another way for them to be like, I'm rejecting this, just like everything else that's been kind of pushed, imposed on me. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, you have to meet people where they're at, definitely with compassion. So that's a really important thing to remember. So I see we're coming to the end of the time. And so everyone, please go, of course, check out Casa Vegana's website and our website, which is all-creatures.org, and please make a one-time one-time donation or reoccurring donation so we can keep these shows going. And so I'd love to hear your final thoughts and remind everyone again where they can donate and find your information, Anthony.
So if they want to reach out to us, they could always go to info@casavegana.pr.org. They could always reach out to us on Instagram, casavegana.pr. Our website, casaveganapr.org. Those are the best ways to reach out to us. Final thoughts. It's pertinent during this time period on Earth that we support each other, and that we support vegan organizations in other parts of the world, because we don't have the same resources as everyone else. So if this message resonates with you and you're living in abundance, it would be great to have you become part of our family and our mission.
Yeah, well, please, everyone, go check out Casa Vegana's pages, social media, and please make a donation to this great organization. And thank you for watching YouTube 1970. We really appreciate your support, and everyone else that is watching on the replay and behind the scenes. This touches my heart. So the way that you're so humbled and the way that you serve, and I'm very appreciative of this, Anthony. So thank you so much for your time on this show and your spirit.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for All Creatures. It was one of the sites that I remember looking at early on that gave me a lot of inspiration. So yeah, it's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.